Welcome back to Meet the Experts, and this next session is all about everything that the London Marathon stands for, everything it embodies, the human stories that are just so paramount and really transcend the actual 26.2 miles itself. So in the studio with me, I have Zamam Farah, I have David Wyeth and Matthew Rees, and dialing in from Wales is Rhian Burke. So welcome to the three of you, and welcome to Rhian as well. Thank you for joining us from Wales. And really, the two gentlemen in the studio, they inspired the spirit of the London Marathon Awards, and the four that I've just mentioned are all recipients of the award. So I'm going to start with you, David, because it was inspired from the moment that whether you're a runner, whether you're a marathon runner, or it just captured the hearts of people worldwide. It was the moment when you stopped just by Buckingham Palace, and Matthew helped you get across the finish line. I know you've been asked about it a million times, and even me just saying it, I can remember seeing it vividly, goosebumps still. But tell us about that moment and what you remember.
I remember a lot, to be honest. I certainly don't look like I know anything of what's going on. Believe it or not, I was actually having a really good day. So probably up until about 15 minutes before that, things were going really well to plan. But we're just looking at it now, and I look a real state. And I suppose what was happening is that my body was going into a shutdown. I'd really run myself to the limit. I'd burnt through every bit of energy I could, and the body was saying, no, that's enough now. So it was a really, really strange sensation, because you've built yourself up to with this goal in mind of getting across the line. But in my case, getting there in a very specific time. So it was kind of really the perfect recipe to kind of be having a good day, but get to a point where, oh, it's not going so well, but not realising that I needed to back off.
Yeah, and when you see those scenes, does it still, because I'm just watching it and it's I get a lump in my throat, does it bring back feelings around it?
I think so. To be honest, it's a bit, I feel quite detached from the images, because we both got wrapped up then in what happened after that. Obviously, I was devastated. I had no idea what just happened to me, and I thought there was something medically wrong with me, which, by the way, there wasn't, it proves. But we both got wrapped up then, not only having just run a marathon, but then getting caught up in the media that followed. So actually, I didn't really see it until the next morning. I didn't really see the footage. So I'm quite detached from it as an experience.
Crazy that you forget that you've just run 26.2 miles and then you have this media whirlwind. Matthew, what was it like when you came round? And that's, to anyone that's run the London Marathon, it's quite a blur at that last part anyway. So how did you have enough sort of rational mind still in operation that you were able to stop and help David?
Yeah, so for me, I was struggling with my calf and I was having a tough day anyway. And the crowds were incredible and they kept me going. And when you get to Buckingham Palace, you know you're nearly there. It's time to sprint and just throw everything at it. Just want to get that medal and finish the race. But I saw David out the corner of my eye just as I was taking the final corner, and he was clearly struggling, and he fell to the ground just as I got close to him. And I don't think it was a thought process, it was just the natural human instinct to help someone in need. So I helped him to his feet and just wanted to make sure he got to the finish. So I was pointing towards the line and trying to encourage him and just trying to get him to the finish so he could finish what he started, not just in the race, but all the training that goes into it. I just wanted to make sure that he got there safely.
Well, we're going to touch on more in just a moment, but Zamam, to bring you in, and we're hearing about how important people, spectators, towards a life dream. You represented Somalia in London 2012 and 400 metres. Yeah. What was that experience like?
It was amazing experience, great. So I'm so lucky to have that opportunity. There's so many people around the world that are willing to have that kind of opportunity, but praise the Lord. In a way, I kind of say I'm a lucky one to be there, but it's a great experience because of sports always change lives in so many ways, whether it's your health situation, mental issues, or so many kind of stuff things, or if you're the winner, it can change your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So You're thankful for that moment.
Yeah, always.
And Rhian, I'm going to bring you in, and you were part of what was an incredible bit of television, the Minds Over Marathon on BBC One. For you, what had you done running-wise before that documentary, and how did that help you for the big day itself?
So I hadn't done that much running beforehand. I'd done a little bit and I enjoyed it. I did a 10K, a couple of 10Ks, and that was the furthest. So it was a massive task, but it was honestly it's probably one of the best experiences of my life. It really was.
And people say that about the London Marathon, and let's go to you, Matt. On that day, it wasn't going to plan with calf niggles and things, but it's still quite an overwhelming experience. And the fact that you are running and you're competing for times, but humanity somehow comes in and it's bigger than anything, like you said on the moment that you saw David. What would you say to all those runners that are going to line up on October the 3rd about how special that day is?
Yeah, the London Marathon is just a really special event. There's nothing like it. I've done so many different races, but London's different. And with all the spectators and the camaraderie out there, it can really get quite emotional. So you've got to try and just keep your emotion in check and just tick off the miles the best you can and just soak it up, because it's a fantastic event and something to remember for the rest of your life.
Mm. And David, you said that you had tests afterwards and it wasn't a medical problem. So what did they put it down to?
Do you know what? It's difficult really to know. I went through those tests to be sure, because I think it stumped the GP to know really what to do with it. And there were certain indicators on blood pressure that suggested that it was higher than it should be for someone who was, relatively fit. But in terms of the day, I think it kind of came down to a cocktail of doom, I suppose, that I was in a position where I'd run the race in a certain way. Perhaps I'd run too hard between like the 10th and 20th mile. Really small things, with that, but also what I'd eaten, had I had enough. But, you can get too hung up on whether you've had enough, whether you can blame it, I should have had another piece of toast the night before or anything like that. You've got to, I think you've got to run within yourself. And I think the other part of the equation was naivety. It was only my second marathon. I'd run the Manchester Marathon the year before, and it gone blindingly well. It was still tough. I still hit those kind of really tough moments in it, but it came through and I met my goal. So I think there was an element that I felt I can, if I do the training right, I'll have earned what and I just lay it out on the day. And it doesn't quite go that way. And I think that's partly what's so attractive about the marathon, is that you have to kind of respect that distance, and you have to respect that things don't always go to plan. And really the advice I got from the marathon medical team, one of the medical directors of the race, was really, it's hard to pin down. Obviously you've had the test, which is fantastic, but it can be any number of things on the day that means it's not gone your way, that, whether there's an underlying infection or whatever. So to be honest, we don't have the true understanding of it, but it was certainly energy depletion that left me looking in that state.
Yeah. And did you expect, Matthew, that it would capture the hearts and minds of so many people? It was almost the moment that people remember of that 2017. I could talk about that possibly more than I could talk about the Elite's performance. It really just stood out. Did you expect it to have that kind of reaction on people?
Absolutely not. It was just a natural thing to go and help David, and then afterwards, I was worried about David's health and make sure he's okay, but didn't think it was going to blow up as this huge media thing. But it was really nice that it was a positive story and that the public liked it, and it inspired people to run. And I've met people that have been inspired by that moment, because it does show how together the running community is, and that there's always someone around the corner that will help you.
Yeah, brilliant answer. And Zamam, in talking about inspiration, because you're such an advocate of women in sport, how do you inspire more women to take up sport?
I always inspired, and is a dream that I wanted to inspire, because of growing as a young girl and not having the opportunity that kind of what I wanted in a younger age, to have the facilities to do the things that I wanted, and I did not get it and do them my own way. And just getting the help of my mom, where the village that I grew up kind of thought or kind of see me like an awkward person, like in a girl running or doing football. They kind of seem like I'm crazy, but I kind of kept that dream. And when I grow up, I thought, okay, if no one didn't change my life in a way, I can change someone's life. And then after that, I've been in the Olympics, like so many girls in back home that didn't get that opportunity came out, and I'm so proud of them. Now had a football girls, there's more basketball girls, so many girls I joined for the running. So I'm so happy that I've been a role model to a young woman. And I'm sure there's so many other girls around the world that kind of take that opportunity, no matter where you are, who you are, that you can do what your dream is. At the end of the day, is as you're not harming anyone or you're not doing something awkward, that you can do whatever you want and enjoy your life.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's go over to Wales again and bring Rhian back in. Rhian, what was your experience of the 2017 London Marathon? Did it meet expectations, or was it something completely different, like David was saying?
Oh, I totally agree with what he was saying. I'd never taken part in a big event like it. Obviously, part of the programme of Mind Over Marathon was us facing our fears in a way. I had mental health issues at the time, and I was really struggling with doing anything independently. My PTSD was stopping me from running. So the training massively focused me, but on the day, it changed my life in so many ways, sort of self-belief, feeling supported by hundreds of thousands of people, and just being part of a community. Again, like David said about the running community, everyone wants you to do your best and wants you to sort of get round. And it was just incredible, and it'll be memories that'll last a lifetime. It was one of the hardest experiences of my life, but they're one of the most positive, and I'll never forget it.
Rhian, thank you. It's amazing that it had such a positive impact. Sam, 400 metres to the marathon, that's quite a jump up. What was that experience like in 2017?
It was amazing to do that. At the same time, people were questioning me, how could you come from 400 to like 26.2 miles? But getting the support that I needed, that changed my life, and kind of getting to where I really liked it to run the marathon. So my first training was to do 5K. And then I remember the first day, like I couldn't finish like 1.5K. And I was like, can we do tomorrow? And I was like, no. And then I had kind of this vision of just to finish it. And then doing so many training, it kind of ended up to do the London Marathon. It was an amazing experience, and I really loved it. So, and it changed my mind, where I ended up to choose to do a longer distance, to move from 400. So now I'm kind of moved to 5,000 to 1,500 to do officially.
Brilliant. So there's so many people that are joining us from around the world on all different stages of their running journey.
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Matthew. What tips would you give to anyone that is going on that start line, whether it's at London Marathon or whether it's their virtual one on a route of their choice?
I think lots of people will be starting their training for the London Marathon now. And I think my biggest tip is to make sure you build up your long runs gradually, week on week, and just try and keep consistent with training, but also not to panic if you do miss a few runs, or if you fall ill, or your training plan isn't going exactly as you planned. Just try and get back out there, get your consistency back, and if you can get those long runs done, you'll be prepared for the day.
David, have you done marathon since?
Yeah.
Of course you have, of course.
Can't keep me away.
So what was that next marathon that you did, and how did you mentally prepare for that? Because it's like you say about respecting the distance, it's a mental game as much as a physical one.
Funnily enough, we both went to Amsterdam later that year, and actually it felt, at the time, it was like, oh my goodness, is this too soon to go again? But it was a really, it was a good experience for just putting it to bed. But I have to say, I put away quite a lot of miles that summer to kind of be sure of it and to give that confidence. But in that experience, it was such a relief really to get to the same parts where things unravelled, you know, between 22 and 25 miles. To get there, it felt really liberating in Amsterdam to kind of come through that and be strong and what have you. But I've done 7 now, so I've learned a few things. But you're always learning, aren't you, Matt? You know, it's always a learning process. So, you know, I'm happy to give advice out, but you know, you never stop being a student.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
And what would you add, Zamzam, for the tips, especially for women who we've had lots of stuff today around, and David just spoke about it, confidence, but possibly not believing they can do it. What would you offer?
I would probably say first thing, just believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself, no matter how long it takes, how many years or how many months or how many weeks, you can do it, because of nothing goes straight up. It's always steps. You start from the beginning of the step till you reach on the top. So everything had a beginning and end. And as Matthew said, if you miss your training or if you didn't finish the target you had today, don't worry about it. Don't just put it into your mind, oh, I didn't finish it, and then you ended up going back. Just be proud of what you did today, even if you run like a 1K or 1 mile. If you add it tomorrow, another K, it goes 2. But if you adding up, you ended up where you gonna come at the end that you're really proud of yourself. One thing I would say, never give up in life, whatever happens to you or what people says to you. So believe in yourself always.
And how did running then help you also sort of embrace and feel a part of your new home city that is London?
Yeah, I always say this is my home because of in my faith and my culture, wherever you live, that's your home. You look after it, no matter where it is. We don't always say, I wasn't born and bred in here. Wherever you live, no matter how long you stay in there, either a week or 2 days, you always respecting that place and look after the way you look after in your motherland. This is my second home. This is where I've been welcomed to. This is where it changed my life. And I'm kind of emotional because of like what I get in here, because of like I don't feel I'm in somewhere else. I feel like I'm in home, like how I brought them back home. I kind of catch where at the beginning I kind of have a bit sort of not speaking like English well, but staying a while I kind of catch the language. Also sometimes I feel like I'm not speaking perfect, but I'm trying my best to learn English perfect, where I can speak in a way like in my mother tongue, because in my mother language I can explain in so many things, where English you need to get each and everything that you need to explain for the right word.
Oh, you're doing a perfect job. You're a true Londoner. Rhian, let's go back over to you. And can you remember moments of that 2017 London Marathon? Because sometimes when you are trying to get to the finish line, there's great stuff along the way, but it can pass you by. What were those standout moments that really helped you sort of keep going?
I think being on the programme massively helped, because the programme had gone out just before the actual race. So everyone knew who we were. We had our names on our T-shirts, and that's something I'd always tell people. If they want everyone to cheer them on, they'll call the name, they shout the name, and the crowd drives you forward. So hearing your name being called is just incredible. And, you know, it's a lot of the marathon, yes, it's physical. You know, you have to put in that training, but also it's a real mental journey. And that self-belief that's just been talked about is so important. I can just remember the drums, I can hear the music. It was so powerful in some of the places out there. And just seeing my family, you know, seeing my parents, that was probably the most emotional bit. But yeah, it's just incredible. And there are too many bits to remember, but I was really lucky that so many people, you know, were shouting and just wanted us to do well and willed us through right to the end.
And have you continued to run, Rhian?
Yes, massively. I have actually. You know, I go a few times a week. I've done half marathons. I did a marathon again in 2019. I do 10Ks quite a lot, and I just do it for literally for my well-being. I go, I listen to my music, and it's time away from the family, and especially over the last 16 months when we were able to go. I've probably not run as much as I have over the last few months, which has been, it's just been great. And yeah, I've got the bug, which I never thought I'd ever say, never.
It's weird in that I think most people that run the marathon get the bug, which is extreme, really, isn't it? That you've got to run 26.2 miles before you get the bug. But you hear it again and again and again, don't you? Something extraordinary about this distance.
Yeah, I think there's a transformation. I think that's something I'd say about the training process now. It will feel tough if you're doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's taking, it's kind of celebrating the small steps. If you've set yourself the goal of running 3 or 4 times a week, celebrate that, try and break it down into chunks.
Yeah.
But it's also mixing up and trying to make it fun as well. Don't always run at the same pace,
Yeah.
Do different things and, run fast to the next lamppost. It's just silly little things. My big tip as well is how good it feels when on a work day, and say you're working 9 to 5, but you get out the door at 6 a.m. and you get those miles in. It feels great when you get back.
I used to always think about the amazing things you could eat as well, because
Yes,
you'd be like, I've burned
absolutely.
this many calories already, and it's only this time.
Definitely.
You were talking about running Amsterdam as well, both of you. What makes London special, would you say, compared to other marathons around the country, Matt? Around the world even?
The atmosphere. The atmosphere at London is like no other marathon. It's special in that way that just the crowds come out and the support. Like I said previously, it can be an emotional roller coaster, a marathon anyway. But at London, when you cross Tower Bridge and all the people are shouting, it's just so loud and so many people, and it's different. It's different to any other marathon, and I think anyone that gets the opportunity to run London should do so, because it will change your life.
Yeah. We have got questions that come in. I've spent most of the day with goosebumps today on things that have just been, because there's something about it's running equating to life and to purpose and to humanity. It's quite incredible. This question I have to go to now, because actually it was also one of mine, and I really hope the answer is what in my mind it should be. But please tell me, guys, that you've become lifelong friends. That is one question: is are you guys friends now? Have you been in touch since? And obviously you talked about running Amsterdam.
Yeah, we've been in touch. We're good friends now, and we're messaging all the time and see each other at races. And it's just one of the great things personally for me from that marathon is that I've made such a good mate.
Yeah.
And Matt's always really inspired to make sure he's that bit further up the road, so he can pick me up again.
Oh goodness! It would have been awful if you go nowhere. That was it began and ended at Buckingham Palace. Friendship stops and started there. And I'll keep with you guys on this. We've heard that Rhian ran another marathon after 2017. I'll come to you, Zamzam, as well. But how many marathons you guys now? You said 7.
Done 7.
What
yes,
have you done,
yeah.
Matt?
I've lost count, actually.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know, maybe 13, 14, I'm not sure.
You know it's good when you've lost count. Yeah.
I do have to stop and count them out again. Hang on. So I went here and there. Yeah. But they're all unique, though. I think that's it. And you talked about that, the spirit of London. And, I think when you grow up watching it on TV, it's just so iconic, isn't it? You talked about Tower Bridge and things like that. But, it really strikes a chord. And it's just a very special day. And I've had the good fortune of doing some really amazing marathons as well. Yeah. But they're all really unique.
Yeah, in their own special way, aren't they? But there is something about going past landmarks that are to stand out, and Zamzam, that must have been really special. London 2012, you experienced it then, and then you're going past Buckingham Palace, you're going over Tower Bridge, all these incredible, iconic landmarks.
Yeah, it was amazing. Then to see different cultures, like the music and everything, people are cheering you because of the top I had on my name at the back, and every 2-3 minutes I heard someone shout on my name, "Go Zamzam!" And I was like, okay, okay. So I ended up where I finished then I couldn't walk for 2 days.
You always see people after they run a marathon, particularly in London, going on the tube. They can't get down the steps, can't they? They're turning around backwards. So that will be you if it's your first marathon or your 20th. To walk afterwards is always a struggle. Okay, let's go to Rhian. Just because you were talking so honestly and candidly about what you had to overcome and how the marathon helped you, what scared you most before you ran it, and how did you overcome that fear?
I think failure was something that really sort of haunted me in the run up to it, with what I'd gone through in my personal life that led to me struggling really mentally. Was a lot around just failing in life and bad things happening to me, and I was always worried that something would happen. And I built my confidence by training, but the one thing I knew, that if during the marathon I had to stop or didn't get to that finish line, I worried about the impact it would have on me. But I didn't have to worry, I don't think. I think, as long as you do your best, and as long as you try and get to the line, reach for the stars, you won't feel a failure. And I felt far from that. And, I didn't do it in a particularly good time. My goals were not to stop, ideally not to walk, and just to keep going. And I ran the whole thing, slower at times than others. And when I finished the line, I've not felt such self-pride really, which was something I felt was taken away when my boys died. So that's probably the worst fear, which I overcame during the race really.
And did you keep in touch with the Mind Over Marathon team? We had Chevy Ruffin here earlier today, but there was a real community of you that were all going through various incredible stuff to get to the start line and then to get to the end of that marathon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the boys would say, we're friends for life. We had a WhatsApp group running through the whole process, and we are all still very much in touch. Some of us do events. They all came to Cardiff once to run the Cardiff half alongside me, which was amazing. We're all in touch. And Nick Knowles, who hosted the programme, is in the group. Chevy's in the group, and we're there for each other, birthdays. And actually we're hoping for a reunion next year so we can all get together and celebrate, what we went through. And you can't break that bond. We were thrown in together, but it came out such a great, really good friendship group.
Oh, so good to hear. Okay, question for you, Zamzam. I've struggled to find head coverings for running. Any advice on where you'd find them?
Oh, okay. I had similar problem that the person that's asking that question at the beginning, because of I used to always wear the one that you rub on the head, so there was not the one exactly the one I'm wearing it. But quite recently, Nike started to process Islamic hair where that you can put it on. So, but also there's ones that you can get from Islamic shops. If you go to, they are kind of cheaper, but still really good to wear it. So if she's really keen on, she can get Nike, or she can also look into online stuff, or you can go to Islamic shops where you can get a smaller one that is similar to the one that kids wear to school.
Good. Thank you very much. Very helpful. So a question to all of you and to Rhian as well.
Yeah.
Have any of you taken on a virtual race? And if so, what advice would you give to those that are taking on the virtual London Marathon? Is virtual racing something that any of you done?
A little, but not a marathon.
Yeah.
I think hats off to anyone running a virtual marathon. I think it's a huge undertaking, but a really amazing experience. I think my advice would be to find a safe course, obviously, and obviously you want some interest maybe to that, but I've found near me, wherever I've done, for instance, a 5K virtual race, is that I've just kind of worked out a really quiet stretch of neighbourhood roads where that you haven't got any main junctions.
Yeah.
And it also helps to focus if you know how many laps and you can break it down rather than just waiting for your watch to beep. I think that also gives you some visual cues as well. It's like, okay, just another 5 times around this block or whatever.
Yeah. Because that helps so much, doesn't it? On the actual London Marathon, it's, you know, it's either Lucas Aid Sport gel stations or Buxton water stations, or it's just sort of all landmarks that we talked about. So.
Yeah, or she can go to the bike and set in the time that she wanted, like either you want to run 5K or 10K or you want to run the whole marathon. Set a base that you are comfortable with it, and don't try to push it hard for yourself where you ended up, you stopped at it. Just set, it's a fun, or at the end of the day, you need to enjoy. It's not about winning or doing exactly the time. Even if you don't do it, just always focus on that you're finishing this thing and enjoy it and have a fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts on that, Matt? It is a different sort of challenge, isn't it, doing it virtually?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of doing it virtually is not having that crowd support.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found is having family or friends at London, you can hear them through the crowd. Virtually, if you can get family or friends or just someone to support you at some point in that day, so if you know, oh, I'm seeing my wife at 10 miles, you'll keep going, and that moment will keep you going, but also lift you up.
Yeah.
You don't need a massive crowd. Just seeing a friendly face or a smile or just someone to clap will make a hell of a difference.
Yeah, that is so true, isn't it? I became quite strategic of where I placed people. But on the London Marathon, I can remember my husband, I was like, you need to be in mile 12 because then you can get to mile 21. And Narrow Street around mile 12 is so busy. But you like you say, you hear the voices that are your voices, aren't they? You're like, oh, amongst the thousands, it's incredible.
Yep.
Well, so, yeah, it's just brilliant. It's just such an amazing experience. Rhian, what would you add? Have you had any experience of virtual running events?
Yeah, so I've done quite a few of them during sort of the lockdown period. But I did the marathon in October. Was it October? I did the marathon virtually, and I did a slight niggle, a little bit of an injury, so I didn't run the whole thing, but I walked it. And what I did was get friends of mine to do different sections with me. So they ran so far with me. Some of them did the whole thing. Others just did sections with me, so it was a different face. And that's a really good idea, is to have people who can run or who can walk to do sections with you. So you've got that company. And yeah, it's not easy because it's not the same. That atmosphere adds so much when you're running around London. But having that company really got me through. I couldn't have done 26.2 miles completely on my own.
And Rhian, any of the running that you've done and the events that you've undertaken, has there been a fundraising element to them?
Yeah, so I'm a founder of a charity here in Wales that I do all my fundraising for, and through lockdown, that's the only way would fundraise. Very similar to the marathon. The 2.6 challenge we did as an organisation. So all of my events have been fundraising led, and people who've joined me have also then fundraised as well. So that adds a different element as well, doesn't it, to your passion and determination to be able to succeed.
Absolutely. But what tips would you give to those that also have a huge fundraising target to meet?
Yeah, again, you're up against so many people after that sort of £1 from people, and times are tough. But what I always suggest is just thinking out of the box. Obviously, you can set up Virgin Money pages for people to be able to donate, which is amazing. However, try and think of things like a little event that you could do is a walking event. Everyone pays £5 to come along and you go for a walk. I always try and do events that people get something out of, as well as us getting some money for, rather than asking for sponsorship all the time. Or donating onto the Virgin Money line is such an easy thing to do as well. So yeah, I think the last 18 months has actually, even though times have been hard, I think people have really been thinking about communities and charities and people who really need that kind of support. So yeah, there's loads of ideas out there of different types of fundraising, and it seems a large amount for some organisations, but you can do it, just chip away at it and enjoy yourself while you're doing it.
I think it's a really good point that it has been such a crazy 18 months or so, but there's something in what sport has given people in this time, but also the fact that London Marathon is about giving. There's just an element of giving out that fundraising feels part of it, doesn't it, Matt? And whether you are running for incredible times, but when you're in the London Marathon, you see those charities represented, it does bring out the best in people.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, the London Marathon ends up raising so much money for charity with all the runners, and that's incredible, and it'd be great to see that back out on the streets again this year.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of moments left. So to you guys, one piece of motivation to get through those hard runs that are going to come in the next 16 weeks. Matt, David, what would you offer?
I would think of that, your favourite drink or that favourite meal you're going to have afterwards as well, because I think, you know, there's so much good for your well-being by running. Just keep at it, keep chipping away. And you know, think about what you're going to reward yourself with afterwards.
You like that. What would you add, Matt?
I think it's to remember your why. I think everyone's got their reason for taking on the marathon, and just keep that in mind on those hard days when it's tough to get out of the door. Remember why you're doing it and what it means to you.
Out of those 13 or 14 marathons, what's been the PB? What's the time?
2:29.
2:29, David.
2:37.
Oh, he's got to get it.
7 minutes.
Zamam, this is it feels right to give you this accolade here. I remember watching Zamam at the Olympics, and it inspired me to run. So thank you so much. Has come from one of our viewers. So I would again just love your parting words for people that can't imagine doing 400 metres, can't imagine doing 5K. What would you say? You've said about enjoying it. What else would you add?
One thing I would say to you, sports always helps people, whether it's mentally, physically, or in some other ways. So it's a way that you can make your own counseling. So for me, it's like there's things that I've been through in my life, but at the same time, it gives me in a way of discipline, in a way of to come through things that I face in life. So what I will say to you, whether you want to do running or you want to do football, basketball, any sort of sports that you would like to, try to do it and try to make it fun. Never try to compete with others or make set of like, I'm challenging with that person. Never challenge it to someone, because of everyone had their own strength to come across and to come through their own things. So always be happy and be polite and nice to other people and be nice to yourself. You have to have it in a way you're respecting yourself, because when you respect yourself, you will respect others. So I always say have a fun and always do what makes you happy, even if it's not a sport, even if it's education or work or what kind of, or going through around the world, setting trips, although we can't go now. So I would say always have a fun and enjoy your life.
Absolutely. Lovely, lovely closing words there. Good sentiments. And Rhian, just finally on you, for those that have just got that mental question mark around being able to get to the start line and to the finish line, what would you offer?
Just be kind to yourself, believe in yourself, and anyone can do it if they believe that they can do it. So good luck to everyone, and honestly, it's going to be the best day, one of the hardest, but the best day. And that feeling when you cross the line, there is nothing like it, or the first drink you have either.
That's true.
Rhian, thank you so much for dialing in from Wales. Zamam, David and Matthew, thank you for joining us in the studio. Such an inspiring talk. I hope all of you now have just been fueled with incredible amounts of motivation. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Paul Hober, who is an expert in all things running related issues. Cure and prevention is his thing. Join us after this break.